now, and we'll head down to the feature match area to kick things off between Ken Yukuhiro and Shota Yasooka. Mono White Aggro facing Rakdos Sacrifice, and these two players again on relatively middling records to 2-3 and 3-2 and 2-3 respectively, I believe. So they'll be looking to improve upon that. This does not look like a great hand here for Yasooka. On the other hand, Yukuhiro happy with his starting 7. You got to chuck this one back, right, Money?
Shota is trying to justify it by looking at the Scorpion and Village Rites, saying that worst case, I can try to draw more cards, and this hand, the Bone Crusher Giant is good, claims would be good if he can find a sacrifice outlet. The really unfortunate part is if you're forced to use that Village Rites to try to find your lands, if you miss, it's disastrous. But if you use the Village Rites and find the lands, your claims get a lot worse until you find exactly something like land Woe Strider, for example. Mm-hmm. So Shota, the justifications going through his mind, I can understand them. It feels a bit too far over the borderline of acceptable, but I can understand why he took so long to think about it.
Like, you can definitely imagine situations wherein that hand is bananas, but I think, as you say, one of the things is it weakens losing the Village Rites weakens the two copies of Claim the Firstborn that were in that hand. So I think chucking it back is fine here. An acceptable 6 that's made all the better with a mountain off the top. This actually lets Yasooka play a real game. Now all of a sudden, this is
now this hand is great. If Shota did go for a Luminarch Aspirant there, if Ken went for a Luminarch Aspirant, should have had the answer. But I think part of the reason this hand doesn't look nearly as appealing as the last one is you don't really answer Seasoned Hallowblade well when you're playing this Rakdos deck unless you have those Claim the Firstborns in hand. And I think that is absolutely part of the reason Shota was so heavily considering keeping that first hand. Is Claim the Firstborn is just incredible if you have a sacrifice outlet at keeping this mono white deck in check. And Shota not doing well in the MPL right now. I believe he's sitting at 20th at the moment, which is within relegation down to the Rivals League, not even playing in the rival or the MPL gauntlet. So certainly not where Shota wants to be in this position.
Look at this, though. This is such a sick play. So, block with the Fireblade Charger. Okay, before damage, tap to make it, or discard a card to make it indestructible and tap it. All right, sacrifice it to Village Rites. Another 1 damage goes at the 3/1 here. And after Yasooka has drawn 2 cards, Yukuhiro has had to discard 2 just to keep it around. Now, the Redain a great follow-up when your opponent's on mono snow basics, but still, that was a really tidy way, if not to beat the Seasoned Hallowblade, at least to make the best of that situation. That was very cool.
It was cool. I'm a little concerned it didn't accomplish enough. This Redain is in play, which means the Shota is essentially locked out of attacks and playing any 3-drops this turn, which is already concerning. But now Shota still doesn't have any sort of steal effect and can discard 2 cards, but look at this. He still has a Skyclave Apparition if he wants to just get rid of this robber, which I don't even think he cares about. I think he's in a position where he could just play this Luminarch Aspirant, start getting counters on likely the Redain and getting in the air, and this game just doesn't look great for Shota at the moment, despite having all these cards in hand.
No, that's true. The Redain is a bit of a beating here, has to be said. Going to go on the Luminarch Aspirant. The Luminarch Aspirant trigger is going to go on to the Seasoned Hallowblade. And we're going to see the Robber of the Rich trade with a card in hand, likely the Giant Killer here.
This is getting close. Shota is getting close to being able to essentially run Ken out of resources and maybe be able to answer this Hallowblade, especially with this Woe Strider now. Shota's able to play it, offer it as a trade potentially. Looks like maybe going for a Serrated Scorpion instead and needs to stomp down this Luminarch Aspirant potentially is his line of thinking. But this board is just snowballing out of control, and Shota understands it. This Skyclave Shade does essentially nothing right now. Serrated Scorpion, more or less a chump blocker. This is just... this is not the type of start Shota wants, and this is not the type of start he needs in a match that is essentially must win, as every match is for somebody in his position right now, sitting near the bottom of the standings.
Yeah, exactly. And a weekend where he's gone 2-3, he needs wins very, very badly. Ken, on the other hand, is 3-2. He remains above the relegation zone at this time. So there's a lot on the line for both of these players here. And I mean, look, you say stuff like, "Oh, this is not the sort of stuff you expect from players of this caliber." This is the MPL, man. Every single person is a player of this caliber in the MPL. So it's tough to stay afloat in waters such as these, and these two blokes here are running out of time in order to get themselves back in a position where they can salvage a season here.
Yeah, I think something that we've definitely seen with this system is the best players in the world playing against the best players in the world means that somebody is going to get relegated at some point. This isn't like before where everybody could try to reach the point thresholds for platinum. Yes, there's a certain capped number of points floating around, but people could still work towards it by going to various events. Here, there's a fixed pool, and if your opponents are getting the points, you're not.
Things still not looking very good here for Yasooka, who's got a hand that doesn't do a lot, right? Like, go after the apparition maybe with the stomp. The Skyclave Shade is... I mean, I was going to say a ham sandwich, but at least you can eat a ham sandwich for calories. Like, this card is worse than that.
Just not a card. Doesn't have text. Ken draws a essentially pitch card to the Season Hallowblade. With that third Snowland, now has the ability to activate that Faceless Haven, should he choose to do so. And Shota sitting at 14 life. This game is just going nowhere. Shota is essentially doing his best impression of treading water, and for Ken, this is just insane.
The Usher of the Fallen, as you say, staying in hand to pitch to the 4-2, and there's going to be a last-ditch effort to get a blocker on the battlefield with the stomping of that Skyclave apparition. Here's a 3-3 illusion, Michael.
Yeah, might have to double block this Faceless Haven with these two creatures, and even then, you see Ken actually play around this exact line, by the way, by putting that counter on the Faceless Haven.
Yeah, exactly.
You know that if your opponent has a stomp, they can represent this sort of board presence. So putting that counter on the Faceless Haven essentially forces this double block from Shota, meaning Shota goes down to 9, and Ken still has 3 problematic creatures on the board.
Robber of the Rich isn't going to do it here. Bone Crusher Giant waiting in the wings. Woe Strider also an option here. It's going to be the one that's played. It's just another warm body, I guess, in the form of that goat. Skyclave Shade can't block.
Skyclave Shade can't block. Robber of the Rich doesn't want to block, and in all cases, Shota is just trying to do anything. Oh no!
Oh wow! All right, well,
trying to just concede the game. It's not over. Robert does have reach, but it's. How do you say it's not over while acknowledging that the game is basically over, right?
All of the Skyclaves is going to mean that one of these creatures, either the Hallowblade or the Aspirin, is going to take to the skies and close this game out in convincing fashion. It is going to be the Hallowblade. We're going to see a chump block from the Robber just to stay alive. 10 flying damage coming in. You hate to see it if you Shota Yasooka. Just hasn't been in it, man. Just hasn't been in it, Money.
Yeah, I don't even think this deck choice is particularly bad for the weekend. Shota is 2-3 at the moment coming into today. Yes, it's round 7, but because the MPL has 24 players, they're only playing 11 matches this weekend. So they played 5 yesterday, 6 today. And for Shota, just every point matters so much, and he just hasn't been able to find them.
Hasn't been able to find them and can't find them here in game number 1 either. We do have a second and maybe a third game here. Give Yasooka an opportunity to rally. And some grindier cards in the board in the form of Croxer, Oxer, another Skyclave Shade, but I mean, where does he want to go from here? Just bring in more Heartless Acts, more ways to keep the board under control? What's the chop?
Get rid of some of your dead cards. Get rid of your Skyclave Shades. That's not how you're winning the matchup. One, they're just not attacking profitably. Two, they can't block. Heartless Act, really good. Shredded Sails, quite good. Deals with all of the flying creatures, as well as giving you an answer to something like that Maul of the Skyclaves that was so problematic that game.
Yeah.
Or
the sword, the back half of Halvar as well gets dealt with by that, so not too bad. Yep.
Might be looking for something like the Crowan War, but it is quite an expensive effect. I think you may still need it just to clean up the board, but it's pretty awkward. Over on Ken's side, Archon of Absolution, a card that we've seen the mono-white decks playing purely for the mono-white mirror. Not really what they're looking for. These 2 copies of Shadow Spear, I think, will further make the game pretty brutal. Just essentially removing Shota's options of racing, should they want to do so. But honestly, Ken's already... Ken's supposed to be not favored in this matchup, and yet that game just looks so dominating.
Let's head back down and see how things go in games 2 and potentially 3 here. As we kick things off, looks like both players have kept 7, is that right? And the self will save you to open up the account here for Yukuhiro.
Yeah, it looks like both players kept 7. Shota has an actual curve this time, as well as the all-important claim village rights combo. So certainly able to do more with this hand than the last one. Now, if Ken just goes for a Seasoned Hallowblade here, Shota will be able to make the most of it. The dog, Selfless Savior, essentially gives indestructible, but not protection like we've seen in the past. So should Shota choose to go for it here, he could have just used that Claim Village Rights combo, instead just going for the Woe Strider.
Woe Strider instead here. Maybe an attack with the rubber just to get a card out of hand. Nope, going to hold it back. But with the onboard sack effect that is Woe Strider, this means that the Claim the Firstborn becomes extremely potent. Can nick what your opponent's got going on and then to chuck it down the gullet of the Woe Strider here.
Yeah, once you remove the mandatory use of village rights post Claim the Firstborn, it means that you have more options for what to do with your mana, something like a second Robber of the Rich cast as well. So Shota essentially just keeping options available here and now going for a Redain instead.
Yeah, this means any snow-covered basics is going to come into play untapped. It means that this Redain is not going to be the problem that it was last game as well here, as it's going to end up in the belly of the Woe Strider. And Yasooka here obviously getting an attack in with the Angel. Is it an Angel? It's a God, isn't it?
It is a God.
It's a God, yeah. Before it gets... Oh, fed to the village rights, not fed to the Woe Strider. Interesting, all right.
Yeah, I think this is Shota saying that he feels like he needs more from his deck right now. This hand is not enough to get through, and we can see why. This single Seasoned Hallowblade on the board has just entirely shut down Shota's ground attacks. Shota had the option of casting a second Robber and attacking with everything there, but you just can't play this game where you're getting some chip damage through at the cost of losing creatures against this mono white deck, because once Ken is stable, you're just not doing anything.
Giant Killer and Maul of the Skyclaves to follow it up with. Let's see where this Maul's going to go. This Maul's such a beating, dude.
Yeah, this is just Ken getting to play fully defensively and essentially forcing Shota to try to find a way past this.
And 2 lands in hand, both of which can be chucked away to defend the Seasoned Hallowblade, although it doesn't protect it from the Crowan War here.
That's a great draw. That's a great draw for Shota. It will not only get rid of the best blocker on Ken's side, essentially, but the next turn it's going to force attacks, which means that Ken is going to lose the Selfless Savior, has to attack with the Hallowblade, and that's the window that Shota needs to start attacking back.
Yeah, so also considering an attack, you can see he's hovering over the no attacks button, so obviously he doesn't think too highly of the idea. No, it's going to end the turn. Doesn't send anything. Can't attack with the Giant Killer, of course. Your Crowan War, unlike a lot of unlike a lot of threaten effects like this, doesn't actually give the creature that you steal haste, so you can't attack with it that turn. Now, moving the Maul of the Skyclaves over isn't too bad. You only gain control of the creature, not what's attached to it.
Of course. Ken does not have to attack this turn, has to attack next turn.
Oh, baby, that's a great draw.
That is going to be absolutely backbreaking for Shota.
That's going to be so bad, dude. Oh my
The
goodness.
reason Ken moved this Maul was to be able to attack with that Savior the next turn when he's forced to.
Without losing it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, either forcing the double block from the Robber, which still wouldn't be enough, or just keeping the Savior. But now with that Shredded Sails destroying the Maul, this is going to be... This could just be game-ending, honestly, for Shota.
So can't block the dog here.
Could block it, just not profitably, right? You do have reach.
Oh, still got the yeah. No, that's right. So you could wait. You can block the dog and then blow up the sails. Or blow up the Maul.
You should be blocking it with the Robber and then blowing up the sails. But perhaps Shota just thinking this dog is going to die to the Aggro War anyways. Now that it's attacked, so I don't need to do this now in terms of blowing up the Maul. I can save it for a more profitable opportunity.
Right. Okay. And you see there, after first strike damage goes through, the dog is sacrificed to make the 3/1 indestructible.
Yeah, Shota making the most of this Aggro War, getting rid of the Giant Killer before Aggro War goes away, going to get another card out of Ken's hand here, thanks to the Aggro War's third chapter, and this game looking much better for Shota now. Okay, this game
Rankle as well.
Good for
Very
Shota now.
good. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So chapter 3 of the Aggro War here.
There's the discard.
That's done before the draw step there to make sure there's nothing that could kill it in response.
Yep.
But now Rankle can come across.
Rankle can come across, and so can everything else, because there's no cards in Ken's hand. The second season Hallowblade can't get indestructible
just a 3/1.
Profitably block. So if he blocks with it, he's losing it. If he doesn't block with it, well, you're taking a lot of damage. This is 11 coming through right now.
And maybe Yukuhiro's plan is to re-equip the Maul and get in that way, but that's not going to work either. You just play sacrifice a creature here.
Yeah, you have these Woe Striders. You want them in your graveyard so you can escape them. Shota more than happy to pick that mode here, and I think this game is just over in Shota's favor with that Shredded Sails in hand.
Yeah, and doesn't even bother finding out. Just concedes. The Shredded Sails would remove the Maul and make it impossible for Yasooka to really, be able to lose this game. So well done, Shota Yasooka, recovering marvelously after a stumble in game number 1 left him on the ropes. Game number 2 going his way, and now things even up between these two Japanese superstars. So we'll head to game number 3 as soon as things are ready.
There does seem to be some error in our deck lists here, Riley, because I just spotted some copies of Immerstrom Predator, I believe, in Shota's deck. And
really?
That is not a card that we have on our list here. So
oh, that's true.
Another large flyer that could certainly be problematic for Ken, considering the Predator is indestructible and blocks essentially every creature in Ken's deck.
All right, we're having a look at that now. The production team looking into the correct sideboard configuration here, and we'll be back with more details as soon as we've got them for you. But in the meantime, we can head back down to the feature match area with these two players and see how things shake out in game number 3. Things are equalised here. Yukuhiro on 1 and Shota Yasooka also on 1. And it looks like both players have kept to 7. We're off to the races. Usher of the Fallen opening the account here for Yukuhiro. Back over to Yasooka, who does not have a great turn one play there and claim the firstborn.
I was going to say a bit of an awkward start for Shota. However, with the draw of that pathway, essentially giving him the black mana that he was looking for, much better now, just because you do have access to that Woe Strider on 3 with that claim the firstborn. Something interesting that we see Shota doing here is playing the Faceless Haven rather than the Pathway. That is a direct nod to Redan sitting in Ken's hand. You want to get that untapped Snowland down now, because if your third land drop is shut off by that god from Ken, Shota's entire game just dies on the spot there.
So before combat, stomp on the Luminarch Aspirant here. Leaves behind a 3/2 Usher of the Fallen. One of the best Savannah lines we've seen in quite a while, actually.
Yeah, it's certainly been a card that has not overperformed, just because I think a lot of people had high expectations of a 1 mana 2/1 that essentially gave you things to do with your mana. It's not a card that we see, or a stat line we see printed too often with late game capabilities. One of the last iterations of it was something like Clothis, and that card was legendary and flipped into a planeswalker. So certainly good company to have 1-drops that have relevant late game applications.
Yeah. Anytime a card like this, I mean, a 1 mana 2/1 is pretty good. Generally speaking, there have been 14 printed of them in white, and this is towards the top end of them. Obviously there was Kithion, I remember that one.
Kithion, not Clothis, yes, sorry.
Soldier
K name.
Soldier of the Pantheon also did a lot of work back in the day.
Ah, yes, those were good times.
Sky Marcher Aspirant as well. Saw some playing some aggro decks, mono white aggro decks of the Ixalan era. But Usher, yeah, it'd be towards the top. A little bit better than Loyal Pegasus at any rate. I just know all these off the top of my head. I'm not looking at a list or anything. I just know that. I'll name some ones from other colour if you want. Drifter Ildal, it's a blue one. There you go. You want a green one? How about a Hex Drinker?
How
Red
about
one? Nor in the Wary. Don't worry about it.
Shota's thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
How about a Village Race Shota Yasooka?
Here comes the Verdane here. And a Heartless Act.
Yeah, Heartless Act, get rid of the god. Claim the Firstborn, plus Woe Strider, get rid of the Usher. You have Village Rights. Next turn, maybe you use it with the Corona War. If you draw another land, you're able to play the Mire here. This, not that bad. Not great, not that bad.
I mean, the Heartless Act becoming an unsummon is not great, but you're still in a position to leverage one of these 4-drops here to good effect.
Ken could play a Hallow Blade and equip Sword of the Realms to it here. That would be the best use of his mana, essentially really hoping to draw a 5th land to not play one of these 3-drops before he's able to get Sword of the Realms on it. But now this just lines up into Shota being able to play something like Rankle here, and just continuing to put on pressure and maybe stabilizing this board.
The other option is the Akron War to nick it. And then you've got a Village Rights as well here. And here we're seeing one of the pitfalls of the Hallow Blade, which is, indestructible is all well and good, but when your opponent's stealing stuff from you, it doesn't do a lot.
It doesn't do a lot, and Ken again missing on the 5th land, meaning that either he just needs to run back the same line as last turn, or now playing the Apparition to try to get rid of the Akron War, forcing Shota's hand on one of these sacrifice effects.
And it's going to be Village Rights. I mean, Ken knew that he wasn't going to get back the Hallow Blade here.
Well, he was going to get it back, just not onto the battlefield.
Just not, yeah, exactly, yeah, good point.
Immerstrom Predator, decent draw. Shredded Sails, great draw from Shota. Now has a permanent answer to Sword of the Realms and is able to push some damage here, force either a block from Ken, getting rid of this Woe Strider, yes, but giving Shota a 4/4, or no blocks, and then Shota can just force the same thing with Rankle while pushing through an additional 3 damage. So for Ken, I think this is essentially a forced block, since if Shota wants this trade, he can force it to happen. And if Shota doesn't want this trade, then it's just not going to happen anyways. So it's really Ken's call of, I should be doing this if it's good for me.
So Rankle just gets in for 3. Back to Ken now. He finds what looks like a second copy of Redain here.
That's not what you want to see. Likely just Skyclave apparition here again from Ken, getting rid of this Rankle, but this is not what you want to be doing here because there is still a Faceless Haven in play. That's a lethal Faceless Haven, Riley. It should have wanted to essentially further put on that pressure and essentially force the chump block from Ken. Instead, likely opting for Immersed Predator here, but every option just looking excellent for Shota.
Yeah, looking really good here. Immersed Predator has seen some play in these Rakdos lists. Certainly is a powerful threat when utilised correctly. And we're going to see it come into play now as well. Another 4-mana 3/4 flyer and a Fireblade Charger enters the fray as well. So no Shredded Sails this turn, but that's probably fine because you are looking at lethal next turn here in a number of ways. And Ken has just been outclassed in this game here, Money.
Yeah, going into the match, we believe that Rakdos Sacrifice was favored against Mono White Aggro. Shota had this unfortunate mulligan in the first game. The hand was a bit awkward, didn't have access to those Claim the Firstborns. We've seen Claim be massive in both of the post-board games so far. So just a bit of an unfortunate game one, but this is exactly the win that Shota needed because if you're playing Rakdos Sacrifice in this league weekend in 20th place and you need these wins, and then you get paired against Mono White, the deck that you're essentially more or less targeting, and you lose, at that point there's just no real hope, you know? Predator can sacrifice this Charger, get a counter, pick off this Alcid. Shredded Sails can pick off the Redain, and then you have 3 lethal attackers left over. And this is all she wrote, I believe, for Ken Yukuhiro.
Faceless Haven wakes up from its slumber. There is, of course, the Shredded Sails as well to prevent the block. Not that it's needed here.
Yeah, this is 3.
All of these creatures are lethal, and Ken Yukuhiro goes down to Shota Yasooka 2-1. It was a valiant effort there from Ken, but Yasooka played a cool hand and won 2 sideboarded games to win the match.